Every company in its own journey needs to find what solution works best for them. See, it's a extremely fast moving industry. When you're a young company, obviously you need to collaborate a lot, you need to brainstorm, you need to be able to take decisions fast, you need to hustle, you need to do all of those things, and the workplace needs to support you. If you looked at it globally, there was a point where this was the hottest industry, then it got lost all flavor. So when we started, we were very clear we were building something for India.
I'm a promoter of a business that is about 100 odd people. Why should I come to office?
In India, about 75% is fragmented with family offices, mid-tier developers, and so on. We said, well, if that's the case, then why can't we partner with them?
What kind of environments really make this team thrive? What is it that people really want in an environment?
I think, in my view, entrepreneurship is a mix of life lessons, right? I think it's not a straight journey. There are a lot of decisions and directions that you take, and sometimes you succeed, sometimes you fail, right? So I think
Hello. Before we get started with this episode, I quickly wanted to share that we are now a part of the Zerodha Media Network. Thank you so much for watching.
Welcome to the Indian Silicon Valley podcast. I'm your host, Jibraj, and today we're back with another incredible episode with this founder who has built a company over the last 10 years, taken it public in a space that is globally considered to be extremely operationally challenging and very, very difficult to build, scale, and successfully grow in. Join me in welcoming Mr. Amit Ramani, who is the founder and chairman of Awfis. Thank you so much for joining me today.
thank you, Jivraj, for having me.
Very excited to be hosting you because, as I said, not only is your business very tough outside in, it's also very people driven. It's the heart of corporate spaces, right? So a lot of value creation is happening because of the spaces that you create. And then because of the complexities of the business, the way you've been able to build it is commendable. To take it public in 10 years, to grow shareholder value, to really build value for all stakeholders. I want to understand all of it. I think it might be helpful to just start with context.
Sure.
Maybe of where we are today and how it started, right? So to those who may not be completely familiar with the business, if you can just very quickly talk to us about where we are, how many centers, what is the geographical split, how many SMEs, how many sort of large corporates do you cover between your sort of spaces? And then what does that mean from where you began?
Sure.
That would be really interesting to understand.
So currently, Jibraj, we have about 250 locations across 18 cities, about 60 micro markets. Currently, total about 150,000 seats that are there. And essentially, the idea when we started was to be able to have a office center within a 15 to 20 minute driving radius across at least the 7 metro cities. So like if you were to look at, to give you some context, in a city like Mumbai, we would have close to about 35 locations. City like Bangalore would have 40 plus locations, right? So you literally, will have an office location in that time frame that I mentioned. Where we started from was, I think if you looked at it globally, there was a point where, this was the hottest industry. Then it got lost all flavor, right? Completely. So when we started, we were very clear we were building something for India. We are not building something that was a copy paste from a global kind of a scenario. Because, we, at least I inherently believe even then, that the asset liability mismatch that happens, right? Because you are in a long-term lease and your customer is coming to you with flexibility. So they're in a short-term scenario. So there will always be this mismatch. And if you can't overcome this mismatch, then you will have a business that is exposed to, obviously is not resilient and is exposed to various ups and downs that could happen. So we started off in a very different approach to the whole thing, right? Because everybody thinks this is a demand solution, right? But the reality is that in any situation, you can't control the demand, right? The demand can be cyclical, demand can have an impact of macro factors, geopolitical factors. The only thing you can have an impact on is how you curate your supply, right? And I think that's where we started, where we believed that to overcome this asset liability mismatch, one had to make the landlord as a partner. And if you made the landlord as a partner, I think there was opportunity for both to come out as a win-win. And essentially, this was a very India-centric solution because in India, unlike the global markets where all of the real estate is controlled by institutions, in India, about 75% is fragmented with family offices, mid-tier developers, and so on, who hold anywhere between, let's say, a one floor to maybe a small building, right? And we said, well, if that's the case, then why can't we partner with them? Because a lot of their space was lying vacant. And, we felt that this was the opportunity. And essentially, we coined this term called managed aggregation, right? Very unique at that time because, I think this was being done in hospitality, because if you were to look at a brand like Marriott, that's exactly what it does, right? It asks the developer to, have the building, they give the specs, the developer invests the money, and then they manage and basically take a cut out of the revenue or the profit. So we said, well, can we do this in co-working? Never been done ever before. But we believed that this was something which would help us overcome the asset liability mismatch. And hence the landlord became our partner, and hence we started the journey with managed aggregation. Uphill battle, you can imagine. I come to you and I say, you put in new capital, you already have the building or the floor with you. I'm asking you to put 3-4 crores towards that additionally. On top of it, I'm saying that when I make money, you will make money, right? So it's a tough sell. But today, I think we have scaled it up to almost out of the 250 locations, 180 plus are in this model. And, again, I say it proudly that, we have done managed aggregation in every city that we operate in. And it's testament to not just tier 1 cities, but even tier 2 cities. I mean, a city like Calcutta, we have no straight lead. We only do managed aggregation. So I think good testament to the model that we came up initially. And then obviously the teams have been able to successfully roll it out and grow it at this scale.
Absolutely. I think you fundamentally flipped the question and said that, okay, what is broken in this co-working space at a time when co-working wasn't even a term in India, perhaps. So just for the ease of understanding, you ask the landowner or the building owner to invest some more money, and that asset is then controlled by the landlord itself. You then manage it, you get demand. You make money, and then when you make money, they also make money. This way, they utilize the piece of land in a more meaningful manner, and you manage and do a bunch of things around the demand side, right?
That is correct.
Let's understand from the customer side now, maybe, right? Like, so let's say I'm a promoter of a business that is about 100 people. I come to you. Why should I sort of, come to Awfis, and what is the offering that I'm signing up for?
So, Yuvraj, having run a SME or a mid-sized business, right? I understood very well what the challenge was, right? I mean, as a 100-person company, if you are the promoter, if your air conditioning breaks down, you are the guy calling, right? There is no admin, there is no IT, right? So scale becomes a challenge, and the fundamental challenge is not just about managing the space. It is about getting into a decent asset, right? Correct. Because let's say you were to come to this asset where we are sitting today, the developer does not want to chop up his floor plate because of efficiency goes down, right? And hence the 100-seater guy, instead of coming into a sorted grade A institutional building, goes to Udyog Vihar, right? Which is substandard infrastructure and so on.
Because they can customize.
That's correct. Because those landlords will give you a smaller floor plate, right? I mean, a 5,000 square foot floor plate will available there, right? So we said, well, if you were to fundamentally look at it, a small, medium business, the 100-person business, what is it that he's looking for, right? They are looking for a hassle-free experience. They want a great environment where the teams can interact. And yes, they want their privacy within their 100-person team, but they're happy to interact with others when they're using common amenities, let's say a cafe or a meeting room, right? So we said fundamentally the same person would occupy, let's say, about 400 people would occupy 10,000 odd square feet. If I reduce his requirement, right, because instead of having all these other peripheral services, which I will have to hold, I will also have to hold my future expansion for the future, can I reduce that footprint itself? And if I reduce that 10,000 to, let's say, 7,000, then suddenly you are saving money and I'm making money. Correct. Right? So I think that's the fundamental proposition that worked. And I think today I would tell you that 50% of our business is less than 100 seats, right? 42% of all India's demand is less than 100 seats, we are probably one of the only branded players that are in that sub 100 seat category. And we are really solving a problem which I think has existed for a whole number of years, right? And I think what we also fundamentally believe is that for that 100-seater guy, now co-working is probably the only option out there, right? It's like the fundamental shift that has happened in terms of food delivery, right? We are comparing a food delivery app against a fridge, right, at home. So it's the same behavioral shift that has happened for at least, I would say, below 200 odd seats right now.
Got it. Yeah, no, that's super helpful. Ancillarily, you used to also run a design services company before you started Office, right? What have you over a period of time learned about like corporate spaces, right? Like what kind of environments really makes a team thrive? What is it that people really want in an environment that they are working? You've also seen the COVID shift, right? After which there's a lot of chatter around remote work, then in-person work, what Gen Zs want. I think it's more a part of the narrative. What has been your observation over the years of what is the ideal environment for a company to actually win?
So, Jivraj, I can talk with some level of expertise here because I wrote my thesis on exactly this, right? So, at Cornell, we kind of studied what works for, the thesis was on, what works for different companies at different scale.
Oh, wow.
So, a startup compared to, let's say, a mid-sized company to a large corporation, right? And I think every company in its own journey needs to find what solution works best for them, right? When you're a young company, obviously you need to collaborate a lot, you need to brainstorm, you need to be able to take decisions fast, you need to hustle, you need to do all of those things, and the workplace needs to support that, right? And that's clearly, I think, if you were to look at some of the companies, they design their space exactly like that. Then when you come to a mid-sized company, you need to be able to establish that you are a bit more serious, right? You are, you're stable. You have a revenue stream. You are some place that people want to come and work. And then your workplace needs to reflect that, right? It has to have a bit more, sophistication, a bit more elegance to the whole thing. And then when you become a large company, then you're competing with all the big boys. And then your workplace has to become a destination. It has to become something that people will travel all the way and come and work for you, right? So pre-COVID, I think the reality in workplace was that India really didn't give choice, right? I mean, some of these terms that you hear right now on distributed work, hybrid, work from home, etc. These were the terms that we were coining in 2001 when I was doing my thesis at Cornell, and we were predicting what will happen 20 years hence, right?
Wow.
So in India, before COVID, it was 5 days a week. You had to come to work. This was a very fixed environment. And then COVID just fast-tracked everything, right? Because the employee got the choice. Because the employee said, well, if I've been productive for the last 2 years sitting at home, working from home, then why would you ask me to come, right? And unfortunately, the commute times, the uncertainty of rains, the infrastructure is so bad that people just walked away from it and said, I don't want to come to the workspace. Now, obviously, as we are coming back, I think there is a mix, right? Many companies want all 5 days. Some companies want a mix. And some companies are saying you can completely work remotely, right? So all of these are coexisting today. I think what has come about is earlier the focus on me space, right? Which was individual space was there. Now it's me, we and us space, because the us is also the transient worker that comes once in a while to the office. So I think that's where the future of this workspace is currently there. And I think where it's headed is going to be essentially us, me, we, and robo, right? So the AI component will come into play. And I think that's really, really interesting where the workspace will head. I was recently at Cornell and we were talking to some professors there. And the level of research that's going on is exactly what we were talking about 20 years ago. They're talking about what will happen 20 years hence, where a room like this will completely transform based on your work style. And they've already created a prototype around it. Wow. So I'm super excited into where the workspace is going, because physical spaces are here to stay. Whatever we might say, work from home, etc. But I think we have found a new normal. And I think in that new normal, people, technology, and AI will coexist.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. I mean, we sometimes forget the importance of how our surroundings really physically empower us from a psychological lens to really win. And I think this is very, very helpful. I'd love to understand maybe from day zero, how do you expand, right? Like, so because this is a very like heavy business from an operational lens, what is your mechanism to say that, okay, what was the 0 to 1 like, 1 to 10 like, and then 10 to 100? Like, when did you realize that, okay, this works and now we can hyperscale, and now you found a repeatable motion to making a unit successful, and now we can expand? What was that journey like?
So, Jivraj, we started in 2015, and till about 2017, we were kind of bootstrapped, or we had taken some
Sure.
seed investment from, friends, family, angels kind of scenario. I think, for us, we always understood that the need was there, right? The first center that we opened up was a complete failure, but we learned a lot out of it, right? I mean, we learned like things like that people don't want to sit in an open work environment, right? They're okay as a company to share that open environment with their co-workers, but they don't want to share it with the third party company, right? So that was one big lesson, because the first center was all open, right? We also felt that we partnered with a chef from one of the top restaurants in Delhi, and we curated the menu, right? And we thought that people would pay 100 to 50, 200 rupees for a meal during lunch. Complete failure, right? Nobody wants to pay that kind of money, right? So I think we learned from the first 5 or 6 of these centers. We had a couple in Delhi, one in Bangalore, one in Mumbai. They were smaller scale, more around 2,000 to about 9,000 square feet. So as we evolved by, I think in the first 2.5 years, when Sequoia came in and invested, erstwhile Sequoia, now Peak 15, in 2017, we had about 11 centers, right? And out of the 11 centers, all of them, the unit economics started working, right? I mean, there were some which were smaller, which were not making sense, and we knew that the size matters, and had to get to the right size. So by that time, we started understanding that what worked, what didn't work, right? Second, the whole idea of managed aggregation, we were able to crack one center in that model, right? So which was, kind of a big, twist in the tail, because everybody else felt that, this thing was not scalable. And obviously at Sequoia at that stage, with 10 centers, there was not really a proven business model.
Yeah.
One center in managed aggregation, where we were claiming that we'll do 100 of these. So I think it was at that point, we had to take a bit of a leap of faith and say, okay, we will now start doing managed aggregation centers. Whatever effort it takes, we will all put in the effort to do it. Because it's a hard sell. It's not an easy sell. And hence, there is nobody else in the world who's been able to do it at a scale, right? So by the time Chris Capital came in, which was in about 2019, we were then an established business, right? We were doing about 10 crores of monthly revenue. We were EBITDA positive. And we were on path to profitability. Right? Other than the capital investment, the centers were making sense. The unit economics of the center was making sense. Then COVID hit, right? And during the COVID event, obviously, it took the wind out of sails, because you never knew if people were going to come back or not, right?
Yeah.
And I still remember this was in March of 2020. We were doing about a 20 crore monthly revenue, profitable, EBITDA positive, profitable. And all boxes were being checked, right? It was just about, let's just scale it from here. We at that point, 50% of the portfolio was managed aggregation, 50% was straight lease. So you kind of had proven that this could be scaled up. And then COVID hit, and basically by September we were down to 9 crores and a losses of 3 crores from a 2 crore positive, right? So at that point, one had to. I mean, it was really hard, because you had to motivate the team. You were in an industry where there's very little, you didn't have any clue if people will come back or not, right? And then obviously the first wave happened, and the second wave happened. And if people don't come back to work, then I don't have a business, right? So, but 6 months into it, I went to my team one day, and I said, we have 50 locations, we want to do 100. And we till then were used to do 5 to 6 locations every year. I said, I will do it in 1 year. And my complete team looked at me and said, you have completely lost it, right? I mean, I think you have, there's something wrong, right? First, we will not be able to scale that fast. Second, you don't even know if people are going to come back or not. So we started seeing some green shoots, right? The green shoots were that the large enterprises, right, who were not adopters of co-working started coming in. And when I saw that,
because they wanted flexibility,
speed, distributed work meant now I don't want a 1,000-seater campus. I want 100 seats across the city. So we started seeing some of these green shoots. And I think one of the things that we take pride on, we as a company, is that we can predict 6 months in advance what will happen, right? And that's all I need to know, because that's good enough, right? So we then doubled down and we said we will scale it at a pace which has never been done. Second thing which I did is essentially I said, well, if people don't come back to co-working, they're coming back to some space, right? Because we are, as human beings, are not geared to be at home 24/7 with our family, right? We are social people that need variety, and you will go. Some could be co-workers, some could be friends, etc. So people will go to some workplace, right? So then we expanded our design and build portfolio, which you mentioned earlier, and that design build services was what we started. The third piece we had started was facility management, and the facility management piece happened because overnight, our extended partners stopped paying our blue collar workers, right? And I said, well, if I'm going to take care of my team, then why will I not take care of the team that is part and parcel of delivering the service? Sure. So we insourced 700 people. We grew that business to almost 3,000 people, and about a year ago, we sold it to a third party because it's a very compliant heavy business, and we were hitting the public market, so I think it made sense for us to do it. But we started new businesses. In fact, during COVID we had something called Office at Home. We sold some 20,000 desks and chairs of people working from home. Oh, wow. So I think as a business we have always been able to one, predict a little bit in advance what will happen. Second, we hustle really hard. And then we fail fast, and then today, I was talking to my strategy team, we would have explored like 50 different ideas, out of which maybe 3 have been successful, right? But if I don't explore, then how will I, move forward? So,
yeah. No, that's amazing. Those are very, very valuable learnings for anybody listening, like in the face of such turmoil, right? First center didn't work, first couple of centers took time, still you had faith. You tried a model, raised money on the back of that, scaled that, but then a downward trajectory happened. In COVID, how did you have that belief? What was in your mind when you told the team, we'll grow the fastest we've ever grown?
So, Jivraj, I think I became paranoid, right? Because one had invested at least 5 years of one's life at that stage, and you had scaled it up to a level where you had a chance, right? A 0 to 1 journey had already been established, and now you had to just scale it from there. And one, the COVID impact, and second, the co-working industry completely lost flavor, right? Because of some of the big fiascos that happened globally, without naming anybody. And so there was no faith in the industry at all. And in June of 22, which was just about we were coming out of the the third phase of COVID, and we were bankrupt, right? We could not, and to me bankruptcy is if I can't pay my teammates, if I can't pay salary, I'm bankrupt, right? So at that point, we went and pitched to various people, and I think one of the Hail Marys came from Ashish Kacholia, who believed in that business. He put a 50 crore check at that stage. Alongside Risk Capital supported us further, right, by putting another 30 crore check. And I think that gave us the impetus to then continue the journey and push hard. And then, June of 23, which was 1 year after just about we were bankrupt, I went to our team and, I said, we'll go public. I said, have you lost it? What's the reason? We can raise private money. We are on a good journey. Co-working has, a negative bias on it. Why would you do it? And again, as I said, Jivraj, we can predict what will happen. And I said, before the election results are announced in June of 24, we have to go public. And this was in July of 23. People said, well, there's no way. In 10 months, no banker will sign up for it. No banker will give you in 10 months be able to do this. It takes years of planning, etc., etc. I said, no, we got to do it. And we did it. May 30th, 2024, we listed, one of the first companies in the world to successfully list in co-working. Completely transformed the industry. We used to trade at 12x 1 year forward EBITDA. We today trade at 20x 2 year forward EBITDA. A lot of successful outcomes are now coming out. I think there are a lot of people lined up with the IPO. And literally till about a year ago, nobody believed that in India you could do a co-working IPO.
Yeah.
So strong belief. And I think I give enough and more credit to our teams. I think one of the things that we have done well is that we have built a solid team. I think I can tell you today that probably in the world and in the co-working, I think we have one of the best teams.
Yeah, no, you've proven it as well. This is incredible to hear. Where does that belief and foresight come from? Like, is it a trained muscle? Have you always been like that? Do you think it's a necessary skill in a founder? Tell me about it.
So, Jivraj, I think in my view, entrepreneurship is a mix of life lessons, right? I think it's not a straight journey. It's a lot of decisions and directions that you take, and sometimes you succeed, sometimes you fail, right? So I think in 2001, actually 1991, when we were looking to figure out what to do, I came from a family of engineers and just couldn't get into an engineering college, but got into an architecture college, right? And I had no clue about architecture, but obviously it laid the foundation for what I do today. And even in college, I was a completely failed designer, right? But the analytical side worked really well, so I kind of compensated that piece, right? So, and then I went to a place called Kansas State, right, which was known for a very specific program around environment and behavior. And a lot of what we do and design and see today, we kind of learned there. And then went to Cornell, and in Cornell there used to be a program called entrepreneurship was one of the classes. At the end of it, you had to pitch, and 2 business plans got selected. We got one of them, right? So that bit of kida of being an entrepreneur was there from the start. And then obviously it took time, because I strongly believe that one should have proper experience, right? I mean, one should work in a regular business to understand what are the nuances. I think again, I'm sure there are a lot of people who at 18, 20, 22 want to go out and become entrepreneurs. But my view on this is, you got to learn the lessons. You got to learn how to manage customers. You got to learn how to manage teams. You don't become a leader. Nobody's a born leader, right? In my view. So we learned through the ropes, and I think I spent at least 6-7 years of my career in a corporate environment in the similar industry. And then in 2010, basically, I sold everything. I had all of 5 lakh rupees in my bank account, and bought over the design and build business that I was running. And then the journey started, and from then on, never looked back. I think we have done, 6 or 7 businesses till date. I think 3 of them failed. 3 of them have been successful. One of them has been very successful, Office. So I think, yeah. And to answer your question, where does it come from? I think it's life lessons. I mean, you got to go through the motions of journey. You got to be ready to take that plunge. You got to have complete clarity, where you are headed. You need to communicate it really well. And then, you got to execute, right? So, in my today in Office, I call it DDA, decision, discipline, and action. And I think, decisions are plenty. Actions are plenty, but discipline fails, and hence a majority of the pieces become a challenge, right? So I think very, very important to be able to take decisions and then follow them and execute them with discipline. And obviously, you got to, in India, execution is the game.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. Thank you so much for sharing. I think a lot of nuanced, comprehensive learnings. On the supply side, since you mentioned that a lot of the market is independent sort of stakeholders, is there any learnings to showcase that this is how you go to a larger player, convince them of something that's not been done before? Like, what are some specific instances that come to mind initially that were game changing?
So see, I think in this whole scenario, and we all assume that it's there, in every situation. But I think integrity and trust and governance and your ability to communicate that to your partner is extremely important, right? Because they're trusting you with, giving you their space. They're also trusting you for additional capital, and then they're taking a big risk because so from that standpoint, I think initial days, because I went shoulder to shoulder with my real estate team, we figured it out as we went along, right? Because first time you go, nobody would even ask you for a cup of tea, right? Because it's like, what are you saying? I mean, why would I do it, right? And I think slowly but steadily, when we would go to some of these players, we also had some credibility because by that time, Sequoia had invested in us, right?
Sure.
And we had a few centers. So it wasn't like we were, hitting in the dark, and people could come and see that people were working in our centers. Right. So you had a proof of concept, all of that,
something
right?
to show for.
Correct. And then I think at some point we started figuring out that, this is something that we can scale. And that, moment came when we went for so I would go, my real estate head and my CEO, current CEO, Sumit, they would, all three would go for these meetings. And in one meeting, we realized that the landlord needs us more than we need the landlord.
Because their space is going underutilized.
Because it was lying empty. You are paying common area maintenance, you are paying property tax, and you are down 30-40 rupees per month, right, on an asset of 20,000-30,000 square feet. And the moment came where I said, exactly. It's like I'm now the Marriott, right? Because and from that point onward, we just hit the, and this is a people say, what's the big deal, right? Somebody can come and replicate. And my question is, well, it's been 10 years. I've talked about it in every scenario. There's nobody else has been able to do it. And even if somebody does it, then
there's enough value
to be created. Plus, it's the DNA that has to be changed, right? You cannot build something without understanding what allows me to do managed aggregation, right? So, as an example, I have 20 people in my real estate team. If I was doing only straight lease, I need one. It can take me 1 month to 12 months to crack a deal. You have to have the patience, because in a straight lease, 5 items are discussed. In a managed aggregation situation, there are 55 items that are discussed, right? So you got to train the team, because it's not that I can hire from the market, because nobody else does it. So I have to go through the motions of 6 months of training, then 6 months of on-job training, and then obviously the first deal gets cracked. As an example, in our finance team, I have 10 people who just manage the landlord's MIS. My legal team is 15 people, because I have to do so many different structurings and so on. So the DNA of the business is the main thing. If you want to go into a certain direction, see, and I firmly believe in India, strategy has value, but execution is paramount. Because if you can't execute well, right? You started with that question on, it's a very execution heavy business. So absolutely, it's a very execution heavy business, and hence to create a scale is very, very difficult, right? And hence you have 200 and some players in the market. Top 5 guys control 60% of the market share.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
no, that's amazing to hear. Supply, we've understood, demand also, but on the demand side, as a, let's say, promoter, or let's say I have 100 people as an SME business, what else am I getting when I come to office, and how do you make it happen? Because let's say I want a complete office space by the end of it, right? Will I get like maintenance? Will I also get like, construction? Will I get like design? Because there are multiple elements to the business. It's not just a asset business and operating the asset business after having structured it. How do you sort of go about the other parts of the business? Because as a founder listening, how should they connect the dots on, okay, there are multiple moving parts, because aapke business mein supply management we have, and then there is the demand side. So how does that work? What are the moving parts to it?
So if you look at, if I was to slice the business, 70% of our business is co-working, where I set up a speculative center where about 30% of the center is built upfront with some 2 to 10 seater cabins that are ready to move and available. Okay. The rest of the space is like a banquet space where services are in place. As a founder of 100 seats, if you come to me, I will work with you for your requirements. How many cabins do you need? How many workstations do you need? Do you need a dedicated meeting room, etc.? All of that, I'll figure all of it out. I will look at your brand and your standards if you have them. I will work with you to design the space. And then post giving you a comfort of 3D views that give you a sense of what it's going to look like, I will then deliver that in a specific time frame. Once that space is delivered, you just need to bring in your IT active components. Everything else is taken care of by us, including if you read rack space in our servers, all level of maintenance, everything related to the workplace infrastructure. All of our centers today have cafes, so tea, coffee, water, etc. is free. But rest of the things, like if you need a sandwich or you need a pasta, you can buy from our centers. The ready-to-eat snacks available. We encourage a lot of community engagement as well. So there are a lot of experiences that we curate. So we, for example, do a Office Premier League for cricket. We do a soccer league. We do trekking excursions, etc. So as a 100-person company, if you were to do all of this on your own, right, you would have to first focus on supply. Then you will have to get a designer. Then you have project management agency, then a contractor. Then you have to have a maintenance agency with you. And with all of this, at the end of the day, you still probably will have a bit of a substandard experience because you could not get into a grade A building. Now, you could with me, because I have the full floor plate and you are taking only a chunk of it, you can be in a grade A building, right, having the great experiences of the amenities of the building, then amenities of our center, and all the curation around the community. And still, you could have a door to your space, which is private. You can work as a team, but then you have a shared infrastructure, which reduces your cost. So I think it's a win-win for any founder that is looking for this space.
Got it. That is very comprehensive. I think this is a full stack solution. If I want an office space from discovery of location to the office getting made, to the maintenance, to the operations, and without having to own a heavy asset and do all of the curations myself. Awesome. I think this is very well understood. I'd love to understand in terms of, the learnings to, let's say, what were counterintuitive things that you did not know? Because before this, you were running a services company, right? Like that is a very different DNA to, let's say, getting operational brilliance done, scaling it on a unit level, scaling sales, ensuring occupancy is high, that does not liquidate, ensuring then scale to all of this. What was the DNA difference, especially because you come from, let's say, an architect background, right? Which is also super unique. How have you seen that come up over a period of time? Like, what has been the learning?
See, we used to run a services business, as you said, right? I mean, services business, you got to fill the bucket almost every 3 to 4 months, right? Because you're doing commercial interiors, typical project timelines are 60, 90 days, and people take that decision, and hence you need to keep filling that bucket. And truly, in my view, that was a lifestyle business, right? To create a large outcome out of that business was very, very hard because, the barrier to entry is almost zero. Any architect who graduates can start up their own design and build business. 100%. So I think one of the things that, and Yuvraj, when we started this in 2015, I kind of wrote the paper business plan, and that paper business plan had every single component. Obviously, I didn't have a timeline to it, but it had every single component that we were able to curate in the next 10 years, right? And that level of clarity, because, I think in 2015, there was there was no co-working, right? I mean, people never talked about co-working. And to be able to then, figure out along the way, because I didn't have a playbook, right? And the playbook that was available was, in my mind, a failure, right? It would never work. So if you had to create your own playbook, what you had to do was kind of break everything and start from scratch, right? You couldn't come with preconceived notions of saying, I am running a co-working business or a services business, because there was no playbook there. And one of the best decisions I took was, I said, I'm not going to hire anybody, because business centers were there, right? And they had been there for a whole number of years. I said, well, in my direct reporting, I would not have a single person from business center, because the person will come and he will then have his preconceived notions that this is the only way this can be done.
Right.
Now, obviously, we have people who have had experience now at the L2, L3, L4 level, but at that time I was very clear. And I think that one decision allowed us to, like Sumit came from investment banking, right? And he was the CMO, right? Never done co-working. Dipayan came from Future Group, Staples, and so on. Never done, this kind of co-working scale. Maybe done a few leasing in terms of retail, etc. My COO came from. He was running hair transplant clinics, right? I mean, obviously from Oberoi before that, but I mean, so we put people together that were hungry, that were ready to hustle, and that were ready to break the, kind of the norm. And I think that decision helped me curate a team that essentially is now has built Office.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I think it's a perfect combination of coming from the industry and understanding nuances, but not having baggage and doing something category creating, because I think that's the combination that works. You seem like a very straight-headed, experienced, successful. You are a successful founder. Tell us things that you weren't able to figure out, or like things where you were confused. Like, I mean, because it's not all rosy, right? Like, so what were the things that were difficult or counterintuitive or challenging along the way?
See, it's a extremely fast-moving industry. Right? It's I think it's extremely competitive, and I think the complexity, we did not envision the complexity when we started. Right? We did not envision that you would have, let's say, when that same employee goes and works in their own facility. They obviously are much more contained, because there is a manager relationship, there is a HR relationship. Here the team members that are coming, the community members that are coming to us, they're technically, the company is paying for it, but they're not in company space, they're in a co-working space, right? So the complexity and expectation goes many fold, right? And it's like running a day hotel where every single day for 8 to 10 hours you are servicing people at their peak of their requirements, right? Because if I go in a hotel, a good bed and decent meal is all it takes for make me happy. Here you are most active and your expectations are very high. So it's very operationally intense business, and hence we had to build the team, we had to build the operating procedures, we had to build technology to ensure that we can seamlessly deliver the experience. And that was something which I had not envisioned. Obviously learned it along the way. Highest net promoter score in the country. Even higher than some of the large 5-star hotels. But I think that's only happened because we set strong process in place, obviously supported by technology. But at the end of the day, it's a very human-centric experience, right? And I think I proudly feel that the 350 people as part of my operations team, they do a fantastic job of ensuring that, they take care of, our community members, and that helps me sleep well at night. The second piece was the complexity of real estate transaction, right? I mean, straight leases can be hard, right, to negotiate. And then you walk into this scenario where you are now overcomplicating it, where you're saying, you know what, I don't want a straight lease, I want a profit share. I will, want you to invest money. The complexity, there are hundreds of clauses that go into it, right? To be able to jump into it, a couple of days ago, somebody was asking me, why would you do this, right? I said, I have to build a resilient business that stays for years, right? I can't build a business that at the first downturn basically goes out of business, right?
Yeah.
And for that, I put in this effort. Second, my point was, what would you rather have? Would you have a high return on capital employed business or a low margin business, right? I mean, I would take return on capital employed any day, right?
Absolutely.
And so I think the second managed aggregation piece was something that I never anticipated that we would be able to scale, because when we went in, most of the times we were thrown out, right? But then we suddenly turned, and today, Jivraj, I can proudly say it, I can go to any city and we will sign up spaces, and still there will be people waiting up to sign up.
Hmm.
So these are the two main things, I think.
That's lovely. I think standardizing experience, that's going to be sort of my takeaway, and then the complexities of real estate are both very interesting sort of pointers. On the team, what has been your learning to sort of, like I was discussing with you before we started, that it's a 750 member team, out of which operationally anyway this is a heavy business, so you have some team, some people already there, so about 250 centers will take up some 350 people you mentioned. But this is very lean and across, like, very large. I mean, if you look at revenue per sort of employee, that feels very large for a sort of company of your scale, right? Or market cap, or however you want to measure. What is the learning to stay lean, or like what is your mental model to grow team? How have you hired over the years, and how has that evolved? Like you mentioned that you didn't want any baggage. That's one of the things. What are the other things that you look forward to building team?
So see, I think hiring the right team is one of the hardest pieces of the business, right? I mean, it's getting the right person in the right role I think it's a lot of you can follow process, you can follow the whole sort of HR related process. At the end of the day, it's a lot about gut, right? I think again, when we originally hired, we didn't have I didn't even have a full business plan in place, right? And we were hiring people, trying to hire people out of sorted companies, large companies, and for them to be able to come and believe in you. So I think this was something that from a team standpoint, I think a lot of it is now gut related, right? Because what's on the paper is very clear. I mean, anybody can understand, and you have team members that vet them. You have reference checks in place, etc., etc. But a lot about is all about gut. And I think and my HR team kids around, if I walk out of the room in the first 10 minutes, then it's a no. If I have spent an hour plus, then it's a hire for life, right? So I think so I spend a lot of time in making sure even at the L1, L2, L3 level, I personally get engaged. Second, I think it's important to keep the team aligned, to give them clarity, right, of where we are going as a business, why we are doing something. I mean, today we have been a great place to work 5 years in a row. On a trust index, we are 92% plus every year. So just understanding the team, the pulse of the team, what is working, what is not working. And then third, creating a equal opportunity workplace. I think it's easier said than done. I mean, today almost 35% of our teammates are women, and we strongly believe that I think having a healthy mix of gender, personality, demographics, all of that is important. So what we have now, earlier we were, we kind of used to all hustle and get it done. Now, obviously, we have verticalized a lot of things. New verticals that we are bringing in, we have gotten heads for them, specifically, I would call them like CEOs for those specific businesses like design and build, or the food business, or even the furniture business that we are expanding into. So we have gotten all the the leaders now in place. Obviously, we have also given chances to our team members that are willing to step up, and in some cases there are external hires. Some cases they are been promoted through the ranks. And third, I think you got to give people an outcome. And I think, Jivraj, I feel very, very proud that people ask, why did you do the IPO? And the reality is, when the IPO happened, over 100 plus people became crororepatis, right, in the company, and that outcome, you can't ever compare it. And so we've taken care of our teams till date, and I think that's the reason that the teams have given back and gotten us to this stage.
That's incredible. What are, if you had to point to, let's say, a couple of things that you have done incredibly right? Because over a period of time, you spend time on, let's say, category definition, then scaling, then, profitability. Where are you currently spending your time, and how has that changed over the years?
So, see, initial 0 to 1, you got to do everything, right? You don't make an exception. You just roll up your sleeves and get it done. And I think that is what we did, at least for the first 3 years of the journey. I think post-COVID, I started taking some serious strategic bets, right? Like, for example, the decision to go from 50 to 100 was opposed by everybody, every single person in my team. The decision to start design and build was opposed by every single person in my team. So you got a balance where, you have to be able to put your foot down and say, at some point as a promoter founder, I will take this call and live with it. Having said that, it's not that we have not made mistakes, right? I mean, like the FM business, I was the proponent to start it. My teammates wanted to exit because of the compliance. I resisted, but then I complied because I understood where they were coming from. So it's not that my way or the highway approach to life, but I think it's also about, taking certain calls at a certain time, and then obviously not trying to live by that decision, even if you know it's wrong. See, I'm the first one to admit, as I told you, we have explored 50 ideas, right? We have explored hydroponics, storage, edge data centers, all of these, right? And we have taken them to a certain stage, right? And then we have walked away from it because I believe that this will never go anywhere. At least we will not be able to do anything with them, right? So I think from that standpoint, you have to have people who can, like for example, Elite, which is our premium offering. Was not my idea, right? But it has done extremely well for us. We have now almost in a short duration of 6-9 months of launching it, have like 6-7 locations that are already underway, right? So it's not about my idea or somebody else's idea. It's about ensuring that you have the right dialogue, you have the right engagement, and you have the right decision-making process. And I think that's where we have excelled to a large degree, where we've been able to and I say this with a lot of pride. There's not a single rock star in the team, including myself, right? Nobody came from any company where they were considered rock stars. Sometimes, you hire this, super AI expert and he will come in and do magic. What we believe is, we are all, probably mid to average to, some cases above average, but we are not rock stars. As a team today, I don't think anybody can beat us. It's very, very proud of how we have been able to build the team.
That's amazing. I love the clarity of thought. Is it conscious to have this amount of clarity? Do you have tools for reflection, learning? Does it get difficult because execution is also so heavy, or do you eventually get to a point where as a founder you have immense clarity? How has that played in your journey?
So I think part of your earlier question I didn't answer fully. So as the journey evolved, I think I became from more tactical to more strategic, right? And today, I basically spend my time, partly, I think PR investor relations is a key part of it because it's the public domain. I do spend time on new businesses. So for example, design and build is my initiative. So I spend a decent amount of time on that business. And then new initiatives like, this office cafe, food and beverage as a venture, or the furniture piece. So these were strategies a few years ago, but now they are more tactical. So I'm spending time there. Co-working and managed office, obviously there's a large team. My CEO Sumit, he currently runs that P&L. So yeah, that's kind of where we are. In terms of clarity, see, Jivraj, if you don't have clarity, then how will your team ever have clarity, right? So having the ability to articulate what you are trying to do, I think is more important than the idea itself, right? And to be able to tell people that, why you should take a certain decision or why you would do it. So we call it, I mean, currently in the business, what we look at it, the decision making is about what is the worst thing that can happen. And that's the framework we use, right? Which is basically, if I took this call, what can happen? And once you come from there, then obviously, you will always make the right decision.
Yeah.
Also, we currently, use a lot of these RACI frameworks, right? Responsibility, accountability. And that has brought clarity into the system, right? Because earlier we would say, just do it, right? And people would say, why should I do it? What's the point, right?
Sure.
So now it's important that we give the clarity on why it's important, what it will do for us. Like for example, when we customer obsession is this year's focus for us, right? Now it's easier said than done, right? Because if I say let's become customer obsessed, what does it really mean for the L5, L6 level guy or the community manager that's managing the community on a daily basis? What does it really mean? So we completely wrote out the framework around it, right? And we clarified to people that you are a community manager. This is what your expectation is expected of you. And oh, by the way, do you have ideas? Because you work with the community on a daily basis. So they came back with the ideas. So this playbook, which started with, a bit of a top-down approach, became a whole initiative where every community member kind of participated in it. And now when you look at the playbook, which is now being rolled out across 250 locations, people believe that, some of the ideas came from them. So they believe into the idea and they're willing to, participate in it. So I think that is, I'm giving you one example, but every situation, the same is for design build, right? When we started going in that direction, question was, why would we get into this business? If there's no moat, anybody can become a design build. And my point to the team was, well, is there a single brand that's ever been created in India? Answer is no, right? Is there a brand in the US that's been created? Yes. So then why will not be created in India? So the ability to create a brand, but if you need to create a brand, you need to have the building blocks in place. And we, over time, built brick by brick kind of the team, right? And we hired the best designer in the world. We hired the best delivery person in the world, the best project management, the best sorted, the procurement team, etc. And all of this put together is what is now delivering, 25% of revenue and growing leaps and bounds.
That's amazing. So yeah, you build a process around it, and you have to have clarity. That's amazing to hear. I think the last question on this bit is, since this is like pleasing the customer is a big part of how this gets done. You mentioned about the high NPS as well. What is the learning on what drives happiness or a great experience for the customer in a corporate workspace? Like, if you had to give us 3 to 5 pointers that these are 5 things that you need to get right, like, I don't know, AC has to be right, or like Wi-Fi has to be great. What is that in your business?
See, so if you look at a workspace, let's say you are part of a company, you have a certain culture, and that culture is reflected in your workspace.
Sure.
Right? Now, the bit of a challenge for us is that, I don't know who I'm designing for when I'm designing the workspace, right? Because in a co-working environment, there could be, 25 clients in a certain center having, 10 to 200 seats, or there could be only 3. So you can't really predict some of this, right? So one of the things I think that from a customer standpoint, the arrival experience is important, right? Because the moment you come into the building, you make up a mind. Like we are sitting in a grade A plus building. The moment you walk in, you have made up your mind that the workspace is going to be good. So I think the quality of the business is arrival experience important. The time it takes for the lift to come, right? Doesn't seem important, but and this I learned in Cornell, 25 years back. And he said the time that lift takes creates an impression in your mind. It creates a mood, because if you have to wait longer, then immediately you are in this mode that, why have I come to this place, right? And then when you arrive on your floor, I think a welcome environment, so which is a combination of aesthetics, is a combination of human experience, is a combination of seamless entry, is a combination of somebody to greet you. All of this plays into the mind, right? So which is very important for us, because if we walk into my flagship center or you walk into my elite center, you have to feel, that this is somewhere where I can work every day for the next 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. And then once you are situated in the space, right, then all of the infrastructure has to work. Your wireless has to work, your AC has to work, your lights have to work, your acoustics have to work, etc. Because then you start picking on these smaller nuances, right? Yeah. Because if your internet is not working, your whole day is gone, right?
Absolutely.
So to making sure that all of those nuances get in play, and then when you want to have a meal, it should resonate with you. There should be variety. It should be something that you're looking forward. It should be affordable, right? And all of those nuances then play into the experience of the customer. And then finally, it's how the community managers interact with you. One of the reasons we do 20, 30,000 square foot floor plates is because every community manager would know, the 300, 400 people that work in our center, right? If I have a 5,000 person campus, it's impossible for me to know everybody, right? So, and that makes a huge difference. That you are when they need you, you have to be available. I mean, I'll give you this example, and I think that will put some context. We had a center in Lower Parel. It rained like crazy, right? One night, and our community member basically stayed back. There was a data center running of one of the clients. They ensured that that data center kept running even though water started coming in. They pulled all the stops in the world. They brought sleeping bags. They did everything for our customers so that they, were comfortable. In fact, we tweeted out saying that anybody wants a free coffee, you're welcome to come to our center. So I think those are the moments that you believe that you are making an impact, you are doing the right thing. And that's, if you give these kinds of examples, then obviously the teams also are motivated and continue to deliver.
That's amazing. That is lovely to hear. Awesome. I think there's a complete overview of the business. I have an interesting question at this point. If you had to start in co-working or let's say corporate real estate today, what would you do?
So, see, there has been a bit of method to the madness, right?
Sure.
So, when I started the journey in India, we started in the design space. Soon realized that services, nobody wants to just pay for it. So we added build because then you obviously have volume. So we understood design and build extremely well. Then we evolved to co-working, which is in some ways an extension of design build, because designing and building is at the core of creating the space. So one understood the space and one also understood the corporate workplace, right? So we understood how clients think, etc. So that was an easy adaptation. Now where we are headed is that we want to now become a complete platform, right, for everything related to workspace. So if you are a user, just like you go to a bank, you go for a credit card, home loan, car loan, you come to us, you should be able to get all things related to workspace at one location. You want co-working, you want managed office, you want design build services, you want furniture, you want transportation, you want cafeteria management services, etc. Everything related to the workspace is under one umbrella. So if I was to start this again, I would start by creating a platform by itself, right? And not take 10 years to get there.
Got it.
And so that, we didn't see, originally, I think we spent too much time in the co-working space only. We could have done all of this maybe, 3-4 years ago. But I think various factors why one couldn't go there. Yeah. But that's what I would do differently.
No, I appreciate you being so candid in sharing, and hopefully that's one of these verticals, as you explained, could be somebody listening could build in those spaces as well. So I think that is up for grabs always. I mean, if somebody is exploring these spaces, the idea is that they could probably take an actionable back as well.
Yeah, and Jivraj, I think just to add to that, I think, see, in co-working and managed office, we played a role in creating a brand in the industry. I'm not saying we are the only one, but the others also, and 100%. Fully formidable, very full respect for my competitors also, but we built a brand, right? 100%. It's extremely hard in India to build a brand, right? 100%. I mean, it's so many companies are there. It's extremely hard. So if we have had now the privilege of building a brand, then why would I not create brands in, design build where there's no brand? In furniture where there's no brand, where in cafeteria management where there's no brand, right? And these are exactly what 10 years ago co-working was, right? They were fragmented, nobody had any clue what was going on. So it is our kind of fiduciary responsibility to do it. And I would encourage people listening to this podcast that all of them are serious TAMs, right? Design build on a yearly basis is like a $2.5 billion opportunity, right? Furniture itself is a $1 billion opportunity. You look at cafeteria management, that's another $1 billion. Transportation solution, that's another $2 billion industry.
Absolutely. You have a captive base of people who trust you, of SMEs, large corporates who trust you. You have an established brand. Now it's about expanding it and ensuring that it gets to more people, because having the asset, having people come in every day gives you so much amount of, like, you could start advertising in your spaces, you could start n number of business models. I mean, laptop leasing, second-hand gadgets. There are so many businesses that get built for specific corporates, and you already have that base. So I can only imagine that now that you have a foundation, the world is the oyster.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think towards the end, I have a set of just final questions
Sure.
for you individually, more about you as a person that Amit is. I'd love to understand. This is a question that a couple of people falter on, but if I had to ask a group of your friends to describe you, what would they say?
So, Jivraj, they would say, trustworthy, hardworking, straight shooter, um, you know, kind of keeps his word. And people who really know me would say I'm an introvert, right?
Got it.
So,
That's fair. In a world where you did not pursue architecture, what would you do?
So if I was not doing architecture, I would be a DJ.
Really? That's an answer I would not expect. Nice. As an architect, was it also an uphill challenge to understand business, or was it very natural for you?
See, architecture, is one of those areas where
It combines
you
everything.
are basically a problem solver.
Yeah, because there's
Right.
math, there's like
Because and
design.
from day one, you are engaging with others, right? So in many ways,
Very
it is
external.
because there's always going to be a
Client,
client, right?
yeah.
You won't keep designing your own house, right? So there's always going to be a client. So I think in some ways, architecture kind of taught problem solving. Architecture taught customer interaction. It also, taught me a bit of the art of storytelling. Because I think one of the other things which is very important as a founder is the art of storytelling.
100%.
I mean, because if you can't tell your story, then I'm very sorry, you should not be in the entrepreneurship bit. And all of these are combined in architecture. Because every time you would design, you would have to go and pitch to a jury. That jury would ask you hundreds of questions, and you would have to respond to it. So I think in many ways, hindsight, it's good that I went into this area. Because if I had gone into engineering just like my other family members, I don't know where what
Maybe
outcome
the
it would be.
space would have not opened.
That's correct.
Oh, very interesting. If you were to start up today in anything beyond the immediate space, let's say co-working did not exist, right? What are the opportunities? Because I mean, you also mentioned in another podcast, right? Like this is the time. And you've taken, Office public at a time where more tech companies will go public. The next 10 years are for startups like yourself, which have been built. If a 25-year-old something is watching you today, what are spaces of interest to you, or from your vantage point interesting beyond the ones we already discussed?
So one of the areas that I believe that there is a large outcome that can be curated is in manufacturing. And I think in manufacturing, if you really look at it, it seems like a boring industry, right? People feel, oh, what's the big deal? I have to put up a factory. I have to go to that factory. But the level of automation that you can bring in today with technology, the level of processes that you can put, and the level of outcomes that you can generate, right? Because of China plus one, India being favorable on the tariff side of things, I think the opportunity of manufacturing is exactly what ITS was about 20 years back. And if I was trying to do something today, that would be one area that I would strongly look into. I'm not a technology guy, but I believe AI will completely reshape how work gets done, how future gets built. So anything related to AI, I'm not sure if India is ready to create a DeepSeek or a ChatGPT as yet. But I think India is fully ready to create outcomes out of these platforms and outcome out of these platforms to solve problems that are very India centric, which don't exist anywhere else in the world. And I think if you are able to pick the AI piece of it and a problem that exists in India and use it to solve it, the outcomes can be absolutely phenomenal. And then finally, I think the defense and the space sector, I think are super cool. And I think if I'm an entrepreneur at 25, I would certainly look at those two sectors because those are going to be big for India.
That's amazing. I love that answer. All not the very obvious ones, but the ones that should be focused upon. This has been amazing. I think for the last question, this is a standard on the podcast where we go to a significant time in the person's life. So maybe 2008 is when you came back from the US, right? If you could go back to 2008 and tell yourself something, this can be a combination of business and life, but just what you have learned in the last 17 years that you would tell yourself, and hopefully by extension we can learn from. What would those learnings look like?
So one, I think Yuvraj, I should have become an entrepreneur sooner, right? I kind of stalled the decision longer than I should have. Second, I think very important to get into businesses which can have a large outcome, right? So understanding the target market is very, very important. And third, I think building the team part of it, right? I think again, everybody says it, but I think very few people believe in it, where they really take care of the team itself. So I think that is something I would tell myself, that obviously to succeed, to scale, and to be able to continue to kind of drive opportunities, you need to build a solid team to go after.
Got it. That's awesome. I think all three great learnings. Entrepreneurship sooner is the one that I will maybe take as a highlight. So anybody who's young and starting, I think that's a great thing for them. Thank you so much for your time. I think I've loved this conversation, and thank you so much for the work you've done. I think it is because of entrepreneurs like you that many people become dreamy-eyed to say that, okay, if Amit can do it, they can as well. And I'm hoping more of us can continue doing great work thanks to all that you have laid out. This was an incredible chat. I learned so much, and I'm confident anybody who's made it thus far would have learned amazingly well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jivraj. It has been a pleasure, and thank you for having me on the show.
Awesome.
Hello. If you made it this far, you've probably watched the entire episode. And if you've done that, I'm really grateful. I and my team try to put in a lot of effort to ensure that we can bring the best quality content to you. So if you liked the episode, if you watched it thus far, my request to you is to share it with people, to subscribe to the channel, and to ensure that we can keep growing. We are everything and anything only because of you, our listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll keep bringing to you amazing content. Cheers.